Welcome to another session, another Lunch and Learn session from the PMO Learning. We're here today talking about your first steps as a PMO manager. So just checking that you're in the right space, in the right room. It's like being back at school again. Today we are going to be talking about PMO managers. So hopefully you're ready for a probably quite a lot of information. I think when I tend to do sessions, I do want to give you a lot, and hopefully at least you'll be able to take away a couple of things. But the great thing about it is if there is anything that you are seeing here today that you really want to maybe listen to again, or you want to look at a slide in a bit more detail, we do make the recordings available. Now, in order to be able to get those recordings, you need to be with us, and best way you could do that is go onto the website and just join us on our sign up and keep in touch page. We do put out a weekly newsletter which you will get, but it will also tell you about other things we're doing, other recordings and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so you're in the right place. So let's have a look at today's session then. So before we get going, just so you know about us. So I'm Lindsay. I am one of the co-founders of PMO Learning, and we've been around for a few years now. But one of the things that both Eileen and I, so that's the other co-founder, really wanted to do, we've been working in PMO for a number of years, and we'd come from a place where back in the 20 odd years ago, there wasn't very much training available for PMO people. And quite surprisingly, really, there hasn't been that much either over the last 20 years. So we definitely wanted to create a business that would allow us to focus specifically on PMO professionals, of which there are hundreds of thousands of them across the globe. But it's not project management certifications and training that we do. It's purely around PMO, and there's a lot more of it. Some of the certifications we're actually going to talk about today, but we do a number of different things, and some stuff that we've created ourselves to plug that gap, and some certification-based courses as well. And I will go into some of those today, just for the purposes of, as a PMO manager, just making you aware of what some of those things are. So one of the other things that we do, we keep these sessions open, and you can get involved in the chat, put any questions in there, any comments, and keep an eye on those as we go through as well. So I'll be able to pick those up. So the purpose of this session then is to give you some insights and some strategies when you're thinking about succeeding in a new role. Now, just a little bit of work for you to do on this glorious day, by the way, here. I hope it's lovely for you where you are too, which kind of puts a spring in my step. I don't know about you. But a bit of work for you right now in the chat. I'd really love to know, are you a PMO manager right now? Are you looking to perhaps step into a PMO manager role? Or are you just here because, you're just generally wanting to just understand a little bit more about the job? Just tell me what your situation is, because as I go through this session, I'm really mindful of that, and I will be able to make sure that I do cover for different kind of circumstances. So in the chat, if you can't find it on the bar on the top there, find the chat, click on that and just pop something in there and let me know. Don't be shy, we're all friends here, and it'll certainly help us get a lot more out of the session as well. Okay, so today's session then, we're going to be talking about the first steps to becoming a PMO manager. We're going to be talking just a little about the PMO landscape, understanding the terrain, because as a PMO manager, there's many things you could be manager of, and it's always good to have a look at what that landscape is and reminders. But you're going to be just breaking down that PMO manager role. We are going to look at the transitioning or entering the role. And then again, I've focused on this session, whether you are looking at or involved in a new PMO, so a brand new PMO, or stepping into a PMO manager's role where it's an existing PMO, okay? And there is a difference, and there's a difference in the types of persons that does that role as well, which I think will be a really interesting insight for you today as well. So we've got people that are just pull it out from chat, just give you a little feel for, even if you're listening back, just give you some feel for kind of people that are in here today. Somebody looking at providing support to PMO manager consultants, where they are going out and supporting their clients. So that's a good one. Here to learn about transitioning over to PMO manager from PMO roles. So yeah, that's great. Got some stuff there. Been asked to get involved as a PMO and manage a couple of projects for the organization. Brilliant. A program director serving on a PMO board. Wow, we've got a real mix here. Recently transitioning to the role. A PMO manager is fairly new, and so on. So that's brilliant. So I've got lots of different diverse PMO type people. And isn't that just typical of PMO that there is so many different kind of roles around it, different circumstances, different contexts that you're working in. And I think that just will be highlighted as we go through. But I think that's one of the beauties of the role of PMO manager. So let's have a look at some of the first steps. So it's the critical initial actions really for success in this PMO role. And I think this is one of the ones that might feel a bit like, yeah, okay, to understand what is expected of the PMO manager role, because I think we've just said and just highlighted, each organization has a different idea and a different approach to PMO. And that's great. And that's how it should be, because each organization likes to tackle change in a slightly different way based on the type of business that they are, types of change that they're undergoing. And that has a big bearing and a big impact on the PMO manager role. It's about understanding what's expected of the role within the organization that you're in, or if you're currently looking for work and you recruit, you're going through the recruitment processes, actually understanding what the expectation is of that PMO manager role. The other thing here is, and what's slightly different, is understand what the expectation of you personally within this role as well. So what's the difference between them? It is about trying to understand, okay, so within this organization, this type of PMO manager is required. From my perspective, this organization is looking for X and Y and Z from me. Yeah, so this is about what is going to be your outcomes. What might be, if you were to be measured on your outcomes, what would they look like? Does your organization have a clue at all about from a PMO point of view, about what difference you will be making as a PMO manager, and can they articulate that? It's a really interesting question. And you can even ask this question if you've been working within the role for a while and you have no clue what your organization thinks. I think it gives you a bit of an insight into what your organization actually thinks and feels about PMO, because it's the answer that you will get will probably be varied from, actually don't really know, we're just going to put PMO in place and see what happens. It will give you some kind of insights into perhaps the maturity of thinking around not just the PMO, but also around the project and program delivery as well. And I think it's a really kind of key indicator really about what you might be coming up against in this role. You also got to understand who you're working for and who you're reporting to, because these dynamics, again, have a big impact on the way that your role will pan out, the kind of things you will be doing, who you will be doing them for, will have an impact on what it is that you'll be doing. It's one of these things where you'll find PMOs want to be set up in somebody's vision, and it may be just one senior person's idea of what that PMO should be. Now, sometimes as a PMO professional, you have no particular say in that. If it's a strong senior exec that's got a very clear idea about what the PMO needs to be doing for that business, and they've got clear ideas about what that will look like in terms of a day in, day out activities and how the PMO is structured and all that kind of good stuff. But it's about understanding who you're really working for in that respect. But also sometimes you might be working and reporting for two different people. So straight away, we've got some different people there that we're going to be trying to keep happy, but not all the time. And we'll talk about that in a second. You've also got to understand what the project management means to the business as well. We had a session the other day, and one of the interesting questions that came up was the real fundamental question of what is a project, what is a program, what is a portfolio? Because we've just said that all of those things will be different within each organization because of the nature of their business and what it is that they're delivering. It's always a really good, interesting question when you kick off with this is trying to understand what project management means to the business, and whether it's projects, programs, portfolios, or whatever context you might be working in. And we'll talk about context in a second. And if you're listening back on this, you'll know that we recorded the session, because somebody's just asked about whether we're recording it, and we absolutely are. And you'll be able to get the recording and other stuff that we're doing, by the way, because if you really enjoy this session, we've got loads of other things already in our back catalogue, more things that we've got planned coming up as well. Just head to the website, look at the bit about keeping in touch, and then you'll be able to get all the stuff that we do. Okay, so first critical steps, some really difficult things there. They're not easy things to actually get nailed down and to understand. Appreciate that, but hey, this is a PMO manager role. You're now either stepping into or already into a position. It's a management role, and it's not going to be easy. Who would want to be a manager these days, hey? But a lot will be resting on your shoulders. But these are some of the critical type of understanding that you need. So there's two main things, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I appreciate with people's experience on this session today that this might feel like PMO 101, but just for the interest of the context in which we're doing this session, there's two main things that I want to talk about, which is that in terms of the types of PMO, because I will refer to them, and there's a reason why I'm referring to 4 different types. Let's have a look at those 4 different types first of all, and that is, and I already said, there's project, program, portfolio, and the center of excellence. Those are the 4 main types of PMOs. Now, they may be called other things. Absolutely, they will be called other things, because that's the lovely thing about PMOs, is that we attract lots of different titles in the organization. You may be called a transformation office. If you're doing a lot more kind of agile led type development, you might be called a VMO, a value management office, whatever you're called. It's just generally it is about office that sits around the kind of vehicle in which change is happening. So you've got projects, programs, portfolios, and then you've got this other one, which is center of excellence. The center of excellence, so let's put it back. If it's a project-based PMO, you are supporting project activity. So you're supporting at the project level. If it's a portfolio office, you're going to be supporting, facilitating portfolio management within that organization. When it comes to a center of excellence model, that is about providing all the kind of standards and templates and all of the things that quite possibly a project, programs, and portfolios may need in order to be able to deliver. So the center of excellence is where the standards are kept, where, if you're wanting great insights on how to do benefits mapping, you'll probably go to the center of excellence and pull down from the intranet some wonderful things to help you do that. But in reality, the center of excellence doesn't sit there in a nice little separate part of the functionality. Actually, most of the time it might be embedded into some of the project, program, or portfolio offices, because again it depends on the setup in your organization. In fact, we've got a session coming up, which you're going to have a look at the events page. We're doing a session on integrated PMO, and that was going to be perfect for your understanding of exactly what it says. Integrated PMO is all about the different PMOs across the business and what it is they do, how they can come together, and what it is that they do. Okay, so there's a lot there. We know that. They also offer different services. Yeah, so it depends on what your organization and your projects are being delivered, will depend on what functions and services your PMO will be offering. And what we mean by that is, for example, if you are a client-facing type organization, so we've got somebody here that is working within that kind of consultancy type of environment where their projects are very much alongside their clients, they may do a lot more service stuff around contract management, change control in terms of upsells, and they may do a lot more around financial reporting. Yeah, for example, if you were to switch that and say it's a public sector organization, some of those things are perhaps not as more prominent. Public sector might be that we have more of a focus on benefits management realization type processes, because that's the nature of the projects that they're delivering. We may have more focus on reporting or risk management, say. Yeah, so it really does depend. And that will obviously have a big impact on the role that you perform as a PMO manager, because you are the person hopefully, if you have a kind of remit and accountability, you are the person that will be putting together the structure of that PMO and also the services that it provides. So again, in terms of types of PMOs, just to reiterate what those are, there's a project office, program office, portfolio office, and that kind of center of excellence. And in terms of the services, there's a couple of places where we can go just to get an overview of what we're talking about in terms of services. And the first is P3O. It's one of the main older certifications around PMO, been out since 2008 initially, then 2013 with a refresh. So yeah, if you do the maths, it is 11 years old now. I don't know about you, but there's been a lot changing in the whole PMO landscape, but P3O still has a lot of good stuff in there that's still relevant today. And to be fair, is all around the kind of setup of PMOs within the organization, and there is nothing to touch it out there in the marketplace. What P3O does, and if you look at the course and also the manual best practice that goes with it, it does highlight a lot of the PMO services that you would be selecting for your PMO. And that's just giving you the top level. For anybody here already done the P3O, by the way, just let me know. I'll be really interested. If anybody's actually already gone down that route already. Yeah, it just interesting context for me. There's another one, which is from a house of PMO, and this one is aligned with the qualifications for the essentials for PMO managers. And again, there's a set of services in there because it's all about competency. Yeah. So within competency, you've obviously got different competence areas, and by the way, they all match for different services areas that you would find across PMOs. And there you can see, again, we've got that high level of these are the services that are typically found within a PMO. So from a PMO manager's point of view, having that kind of theoretical understanding and best practice understanding of what is available, what is out there, is part of your kind of commitment to your profession, that that you're keeping up to date with what's going on in the world in terms of PMO. This is probably the latest one. So this was published initially in 2021. It's just had a new edition with a new publisher that was published in January this year. So again, it's about being able to understand, well, what is what's the going thinking around PMOs and PMOs for service in particular, and then what it is, from a PMO manager point of view, because you're going to be really closely involved with this kind of stuff. Let's have a look at the PMO manager role in terms of decoding it then, because again, this is coming from that competency framework where it forms the basis of that essentials for PMO managers course, which of course we're going to be talking about because your PMO learning is delivering that course. The top level description. So if you're looking for something that describes your role as a PMO manager in a nutshell, it's that. It's set up, run, transform, and close an office that supports P3M delivery and capability. And P3M is project, program, and portfolio. Okay. Bit more detail. These are kind of like the high level, and I have to shorten them slightly just to get them on one page. But this is the kind of high level kind of roles and responsibilities that are typical for a PMO manager. And you can see there that they kind of range from, and again, these would be different depending on, again, the organization and how they might be different. For example, is that you can be accountable for all those kind of PMO services and the setup and the structure of the PMO and, the team within it. You may have responsibilities for that kind of people management element, which is actually that direct management of people that might be working within the PMO team. Now, that is a subsection of management in its own right. That is very much a kind of HR specialism type course that you might be doing within your organization. And if certainly not, you would be looking for something that would help you to think about how to motivate and develop and increase performance of people, all of that kind of stuff. It's not PMO specific. That is just very much about being a good people manager. You may have other things which are more broader. Again, for the PMO manager role, could be responsible for, and it can sometimes be given a title where you're just managing one PMO, but you may be managing a few of them. Comes back to this thing where we said about the integrated PMO, where you've got several PMOs across the organization. So there may be that kind of wider role, but it's not just that nice, lovely job of setting up one thing with a set of people. You may also be doing a lot more, again, depending on the model, you may be doing a lot more in terms of your kind of interactions and working with the senior execs. So being part of some of the boards, that kind of conversation, that's, committees, that kind of thing. Again, there's other things in there. You've got that kind of development of like kind of P3M tooling and stuff like that. Again, really good for PMO managers that have come through the project manager route, which we do see a lot of. People that have previously delivered projects and have been project managers make that move into PMO. Are particularly good, obviously, managing initiatives or projects such as putting in new tooling across the organization. So these are some of the things that, from a typical role profile, and of course you're all going to have something that will be, we'll do a little bit more around this or that, but by and large, this is the role. And of course, to perform in any position, there is that kind of underpinning. Now, I just want to have just a quick conversation about the Essentials for PMO Managers course and why it's being created. It comes from the House of PMO, and what the House of PMO have done have created the PMO competency framework. I've got a copy of it here. I'll just put it in front of my face because I've got a backdrop on. So basically, I don't know if you can see that. There you go. It is a book that's been really useful, not only for individual professionals, but also for training organizations like PMO Learning, to be able to align to something where that people are doing some self-assessments, which is all about assessing your strengths, but also your weaknesses and then identifying gaps, and also thinking about training needs and things like that. Okay, so it's been really useful. What they've also done is created a set of certifications, 4 levels, of which PMO manager is one of them. And the course has been created based on the competency framework and the role profiles that are within it. Yeah, so if you look at the role profile, I've just shown you a little bit about the roles and responsibilities. What it also has in there, it talks about some of the core competencies that are required for being a PMO manager, but it also talks about the knowledge, skills, and behaviours that are required. And the Essentials for PMO Managers course is all about that. It's all about getting into the detail about the competencies, the core competencies required, and getting into some of the detail about some of the core role that you actually do. Yeah, so it's a lot more practical about the role you're doing, whereas P3O is very much about kind of setting up PMOs and also getting that broader understanding about why organizations need them and, that kind of thing. So there's a difference between them. So in terms of the PMO manager role, then the knowledge aspects of it, it's a bigger set of knowledge. But from his point of view is that for Essentials of PMO managers, these are considered to be core. So what you're seeing on screen right now would be, but as a good PMO manager, a competent PMO manager would have this. Okay. Now, I think what this is kind of demonstrating, or should be demonstrating to you, and what you should be picking up out of this, is that yes, you're probably all right with changing delivery methods, because you wouldn't have got to the position where you are if you didn't understand some of this stuff. You may understand a bit more about the business side of it. And I think this is where the role starts to take on a very different form to the PMO analyst role into a PMO manager role. You get closer to the business. That's because we are delivering as PMO and project management departments, we are delivering change for the organization. There's that link. It's about getting understanding of what is kind of operating models. What are some of the guidelines around the governance at corporate level? What are some of the kind of business strategies that have been set, which we know trickles down and becomes projects and programs in terms of delivering to those strategic objectives. So you get a lot more of a a business understanding is required, I think, at this role, more so than that analyst role. Yes, you'll be taking a step up in terms of that manager grade of managing people or having a bigger set of responsibilities or accountabilities for things. But I think this is one of the main kind of step changes in terms of a day-to-day role, is that kind of understanding about we are a PMO within this, which was within that, and then actually wider than the organization within the industry that we're in. You know, that's what's starting to come through a lot more at this manager level. So it's the knowledge aspects of it are really interesting. Of course, the skills also will be changing from an analyst into a PMO manager. And again, if you're coming from a project manager into that kind of PMO manager route, and as I said, it happens quite a lot when people take that step over. Again, the kind of skills that you're using and utilizing and developing do change, because from an analyst point of view, you are down in that detail and into the weeds of analysis. With the manager, it is that kind of step up and a lot more of a bigger picture, that ability to be able to delegate, to build a team that you can trust, and all of those kind of things, because you will be concentrating on different types of problems and challenges coming your way. And then, of course, filtering down in your team to be able to work out how you're going to all manage that. But it stays with you. That kind of accountability at that level may feel very different from being at an analyst level. But these are some of the core, these are core skills that are the difference between the analyst to the manager. It comes down to a bigger set, by the way, because you're probably looking through some of this stuff and saying, oh, why is that not there? Or why is not this there? It's because these are purely being pulled out specifically for that manager role. So as you look through those, you'll be thinking, actually, there's probably some areas there that I need to think about, which is what we're all about, is getting you to just think about some of this stuff. And then, of course, you've got behaviors. So you have knowledge, skills, behaviors, and competencies all come together in order to be able to perform the role well. And, sometimes we forget about behaviors. And sometimes, if you're seeing this for the very first time, it's one of these things that's often taken as read, but is it? And do we actually call it out and say, to be a really great PMO manager, you need to be actually demonstrating these behaviors, that we can see these behaviors in you. And again, looking through that long list, I'm not going to go through them all. I'm not going to be picking out the ins and outs. But again, which is why I said, if you want the recording after and want to pour over some bits, just make sure that you stay connected with us to do that. Okay, I'm rattled through. I've shown you a lot of stuff. You're probably either, if you've anything like I do, I'm always taking pictures and think, oh, I'll have a look at that on my phone later. Is there any questions so far on what we've seen so far in terms of us starting to lay out and pull into bits, really, this PMO manager role to try and understand a little bit more about what it is? And, sometimes it's not black and white. A lot of it is in the grey, isn't it? And I'm hoping that we can give you some of the grey as well today. So biggest question then is, are you somebody who enjoys setting up PMOs or somebody who enjoys running and evolving PMOs? Now, if you're coming into this for the first time, you'll be like saying, I have no clue, which is fine. But I think what you will find if you move into that kind of PMO manager career, this will be something that you will definitely develop and you will have a definite preference for. And the reason why is that I've been in and around PMO for over 20 years, and quite a lot of that, alongside doing things like bringing PMO people together. We've been doing that since the late 90s. House of PMO started back in Flashmob was 2013. I was doing a day job and it was all around PMO recruitment. So all around the career stuff was the really interesting bit for me, which is why I did that for a number of years. And when it came to recruitment and recruiting for people, PMO managers specifically, you can definitely tell the difference between these two situations and the kinds of people that it attracts. It's really, really, really interesting. So what it is, it's a case of, are you somebody that really likes that kind of empty space and we've got something that we've got to create? Or are you somebody, actually, I don't particularly mind coming into something that is set up already, because I know that over time it will evolve. Okay. I don't know how many of you have heard that that statistic that gets banded around PMOs, which is every 3 to 5 years, a PMO shuts down. Yeah, it's a variation on those themes, but PMOs only last for 3 years or 4 years, and then they get disbanded, the organization. It's actually untrue. We poked around this over the last, probably 5, 6 years. If you go back and look up the research paper where it came from, it's completely taken out of context. Because what it actually says is that every 3 to 5 years, a PMO evolves, it changes. It doesn't get shut down, it changes. So what it might look like at the beginning is not necessarily what it will look like 5 years down the line. Yeah. And for anybody who's worked in this space for any amount of time would totally get that and understand that. The reason why is because business is changing all the time. And what are we there to do? We're there to support our business. So if our businesses are changing, so will the PMO. Yeah, so just wanted to clear that up because it's felt like it was the right time to bring that up. So opportunities then. We have got, in terms of you of individuals working in that kind of PMO management space, you've got growth and development, a lot of it around that whole P3M space, plus already said the kind of business management side of stuff, which you may not be getting too involved in at the moment if you're working at an analyst level. But of course, there's that leadership and management type stuff as well. So you may not have had that opportunity to develop your management and leadership competencies. This is going to be a great opportunity for that. And you're going to have a whale of a time, and you're going to have some really stressful, awful times as well, because it is difficult. It is difficult managing people. But that's what we sign up for in terms of we take the rough with the smooth. Yeah. But let me put you off if you're thinking about getting into the space. It's people. And we are working in stressful environments. Projects are stressful. So we know we're always going to have some ups and downs. But, that's why there's some really great stuff out there in terms of developing as a leader and as a manager in this space. And it's, something that you can certainly look into. In terms of from a PMO learning point of view, we don't do any of that kind of leader and management stuff. Like I said, it's a whole industry in its own right about becoming a good manager. But this is purely about how you bring that kind of management and leadership competencies into your kind of PMO world. And that's what this is all about. There's the people management stuff, and that is not just managing them on a day-to-day basis. It was, the things like the performance review type process. If you've never been through all of that, you may now be responsible for recruitment and that whole thing, which is, again, yet another thing that you get to do, which is actually, this day job is looking really tricky and very busy because these kind of things come at you, when you're least expecting it. You're also going to have that opportunity to build the right kind of PMO for your organization, regardless of whether it's from scratch or you're coming in. And that is a really exciting opportunity for a lot of people to be able to be in a position where you're bringing together all your knowledge and experience from over the years. You've seen good stuff, you've seen things that work, you've seen things that don't work. This is now your opportunity to start to bring these kind of things together. You're going to be working with more senior people within the organization. And that means is that you become more visible. And that in itself is a whole new interesting ball game in terms of professional working within the space. And we always remember that opportunities will come to you when you least expect them. And that is one of the things of becoming a manager. You are a lot more visible within that business. And sometimes what happens is that people suddenly turn around and think, who is this person? For the first time, you're becoming a lot more visible within the organization, which means that other opportunities may be coming your way that will make you think about, actually, maybe this is something that you can be doing with the PMO, or it may be another new opportunity completely differently. What about the challenges there? Because we take the rough with the smooth. Sometimes the backing and support isn't there. Okay, it's one of the classics. It will be the same, for decades and decades. That there'll always be this thing of an organization wants a PMO, who wants to sponsor it, who wants to champion it. It could be somebody great, and then they leave the organization. There'll always be situations and scenarios where you feel like, people just don't get what it is that we're trying to do, or gosh, these doors are not opening and we really need to push on with some stuff and we're just not getting the right kind of support. It's going to be there, but again, it's coming. So these are the kind of things that you can think about, that I think, well, okay, so what would I possibly be thinking about how I could be dealing with this potential challenge? Because it is going to happen in PMO management. And just as an insight, one of the things that you may want to consider is looking at change management, about how you can put in change and get people to accept it. As PMO people, we support that kind of activity on projects and programs. But actually, this is now about using those kind of techniques and approaches to get your PMO accepted within the organization. Just as an example, and that's the kind of thinking that we want to instill in good PMO managers. You're going to have different levels and capabilities of people on your PMO team. The number of people that inherit people from other parts of the business. You have people within the PMO that don't want to be there because they've been inherited. You have people there that just don't get it, that things are changing, that actually we need you to start looking at some new skills and capabilities, and we don't want to. You'll have some people that are quite junior that are wanting to move up, quite ambitious, great, but for some that are people that might be blocking their way, all of that kind of stuff. Really interesting things with PMO teams that, again, when they all comes together, that classic management theory about forming and norming and storming, all of those kind of classic management theories and running teams are going to start to come to the fore, and you're going to be right, okay, what can we do to build a good team? You're going to have conflicting visions of different stakeholders. So this is about what PMO services you may be offering. It could be about the fact that where the PMO is doing, whatever it might be. Everybody's got an opinion. I'm not going to tell so I'm not going to say the proper line for that, but everybody's got an opinion. Some people's voices are larger than others. All of that kind of stuff. And again, does that mean that I perhaps want to think about my conflict resolution kind of behavioral type stuff there? Let me go back and have a look at these behaviors a second. So again, it's a recognition that it is a tricky role sometimes. You may be in a really wonderful organization today, but you're not going to be staying there for the rest of your career. It's going to happen at some point. And again, even within your organization, as I said before, there's a classic where, and I'll say this, it's some of the award winners in PMOs. You probably see it splashed about, they've won that PMO of the year and all that kind of stuff. What's really interesting, and there is a particular example in recent times, but they actually won an award. But 2 years later, the person that was backing that and giving it all its championing and support and all that kind of, it left the organization, and suddenly it all drains away. And a lot of the momentum and good stuff they were doing was starting to get knocked. And today they wouldn't win an award. And that's how fragile sometimes PMOs can be, So it's, again, just thinking about how the PMO manager role may be affected by that kind of thing comes back to you as a manager thinking, I've got quite a lot of broad skill sets here that I'm going to need in order to be able to roll with the punches, but also make real difference and get people backing you and your PMO team really, there behind you every way. So leading the PMO and evolving the PMO and doing the job as well. So there's a lot of activity. Yeah. So it's not just about, getting people doing what they should be doing. You've always got one eye on, okay, so continuous improvement should be something that's embedded into our entire ethos and what it is we do around the PMO. And that takes time. That does take time in terms of understanding what's out there outside our organization. So what's going on within the industry. And that could be your organization's industry, or that's the project management industry. So there's stuff on the horizon there that's going to have a big impact on our business, a big impact on our PMO, a big impact on our projects. So again, there's that stuff going on. I'm looking internally, I'm looking externally, and I've got some day job stuff that I'm just trying to get through. So again, a busy role. But hey, isn't that what we're signing up for? Isn't that what we love about this kind of stuff? It's a real nitty-gritty role sometimes, and sometimes it's just really smooth sailing, great. A smooth start then. So you're either joining an existing PMO, so what's your remit and who's set it? Yeah. If it's a new PMO, you understand what the expectations of the organizations is. Yeah, so straight away we've got two different things here about if I'm walking into a position and there's a PMO already there, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail about both of those. But just for thinking about that smooth start, is it a new PMO? In which case, what kind of remit you've got there, and where can I go with it? What's the stakeholders looking for? All of that kind of stuff. The questions like, is it a clean site or is it more complex? I'm going to mention that again in a second, but what are you coming into? If this is a smooth start, this is the beginning. We talked about the integrated PMO model and your place within it. And again, if you're not sure about what integrated PMO is, join us on a new session. Have a look on the events page. That's where we've got all our future luncheons and learns and taster sessions and things like that. And we've got one coming up on that very subject. But it's understanding what it is that you're walking into. So let's just go into a bit more detail on two of those. So we've got the new PMO. That lovely picture there is a green field, is what they call it. So a greenfield site, just as you do in town planning, there is nothing on it. There's nothing there. And it is possible that you can walk into an organization that's never had a PMO. However, you will probably be walking into an environment where they probably have had a PMO at some point, and there'll be some people there that have been working within that business for 10, 15 years that remember it. And they'll be remembering all the bad things about it and the reason why they haven't got one anymore. But there'll be a history somewhere, and you've got to understand what's gone before, because there'll be something. There will be something somewhere, and it's about trying to understand that, because it's understanding that it's going to give you some ideas about where the thinking's coming from and where some of the bad press is coming from, even though you've literally just walked through the door. Understanding what that stakeholder expectation, yeah. So we know we're going to have opinions about what it is that they want, but this is also about the expectation, okay? About working out your strategy, about, well, what is it that you think you might be doing, or what would be your strategy just generally. You would have been through a recruitment process, or you've been hired into that position, whatever it might be. You would have already had some insights, and you might be working out a strategy. However, I don't want you to be thinking about the total thing just yet, because you are going to be adapting the setup based on what it is that you know. Okay, you are not going to go in and create a PMO that you've always seen before, because those are the ones that fail. Those are the ones that do evolve very quickly into something else. You've got to recognize that PMOs are different in every business for a reason. And that's because they have to be set up with the right functions and services and the structure and the relationships and all that kind of stuff that fit that business. So if you've been working in a good PMO before, or seen really great examples of them, never think that you're just going to come in like Mary Poppins, open your bag, start getting your stuff out and saying, this is what the PMO is going to be like. Okay. You'll be adapting based on what you're faced with. You will be looking for some quick wins, because that's one of the natures of any kind of position like this, where people and expectations will be high. There's a reason why they need that PMO. There'll be a sense of urgency of why that PMO really needs to be put in place. And it could be that some of the, time and time again, some projects are failing on something, or it can be that senior execs don't have a clue what's going on. We just want to get oversight as to what's going on within our organization. There will be something. And again, it's about being able to understand exactly what's going on through all of these things before. But just the biggest point is to don't always do what you've always done before in terms of what you think it is a good PMO is. I can't reiterate that anymore. It's the one thing, the big thing that we've learned. Eileen and I have worked in this field for over 20 years. This is one of the biggest reasons why they fail. Okay. Let's look at an existing PMO then. So the field's gone now. We've got big buildings. We're walking into a corporation or a business or whatever it might be. There is an existing PMO, and it could be that PMO managers walked out. It could have been that it was always going to be, so they moved on to something else still within the business. It could be that they'd never had a manager in place because actually they didn't feel like we needed one. It could be that the last person, for whatever reason, wasn't the right fit, didn't have the right kind of thinking or vision or enthusiasm for where this business needs to go next. So this is about understanding what that status quo is. What's going on? Why is they're a real need for the existing PMO. Now, interestingly, when you go for an interview, it might not be the same reasons when you actually get in there. So just be mindful of that. The recruitment process is everybody's on show, not just you, but also the organization. And you never really get the full story, because why would they? It's only until you're going to get into that organization you're going to really understand what's gone on before, what is happening right now. Going to understand really what your remit is, yeah, because to walk in all guns blazing, saying, right, this all needs sorting out, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, actually that might not be your remit. Yes, there's some subtleties to this, is that what an organization thinks it needs is not necessarily what should be happening, and you're going to be somewhere in the middle there about trying to understand, well, what's the remit here? Because I don't want to do what the stakeholders are really asking for, because in my experience, if we did that right now, that's not going to work. Classic example, we need a PPM tool putting in so we can find out what's going on within the organization. Classic example, I'm sure you're all like, yeah, you know that you shouldn't be putting a tool in place until you've sorted out actually what's the process here? What's the cadence of reporting? What are we using so far? There's a load of work, yeah? So you know you wouldn't do that as a PMO manager because you know you're on an hiding to nothing. So it's about really understanding what your remit is and hopefully having a pair of ears somewhere in that business that is going to be, your shoulder to, not, I don't want to say cry on, because I know I've been trying to give worst case scenario on this, but it's somebody who is there as your sounding board. So you're going to get as much insights and hopefully some analysis of what's working and what's not. Again, this is just classic, PMO manager coming into a business 101 stuff, which is, yes, I understand the status quo, but what we really got already in place. And let me have a look at what kind of project plans we've got. Let me read through some of these things. What gives me an idea about what kind of maturity level I'm dealing with here. Is there any kind of analysis that you can do that's really quick and simple? And it can be, and I talk analysis and it looks like a big word. It could be as simple as you're walking into it for the first time. I really want to get an understanding of what the project management and what the project managers are thinking at right now about what's going on and what support they need. The analysis can be that you're just spending 10 minutes with each just to understand initially what their thoughts are. That could be your analysis. It could be just something that actually gives you some real things to work from. Work out who your friends are and your enemies. Obvious, but when you're first walking into this stuff, is actually trying to work out. We talk about it in the knowledge areas on essentials for PMO managers, working out who's who and who does what and who knows what, and it's that whole kind of company network of how these things all join together. It's going to be one of the things that becomes one of your strengths. That knowledge that you understand about where you're going into is going to become one of your key strengths in terms of being a great PMO manager, because we have this saying that came again from a research paper that calls the PMO boundary spanners. So as a PMO, we span boundaries across the organization. So you're going to be working out your friends and your enemies, not just within the kind of project delivery side of the business, because from a PMO point of view, you need contacts in HR, in finance, procurement, and so friends and enemies. And also assess the appetite for change, because one of your remits, hopefully, is that you will be doing some changes to that PMO. So you're going to work out what's the appetite. We say, we're in the change business, aren't we? But gosh, we're some of the hardest people that enjoy change. So again, it's understanding what that appetite for risk is within the PMO that you're going to be working within. And again, it's working out your strategy. Yeah. So all of this has come into what is it then that is going to make some changes based on some of the challenges that we've got. So it's about making a lasting impact, so it is about being able to gain that essential knowledge to understand the role of a PMO manager, understanding a greater understanding of projects, programs, portfolios, and PMOs, because you want to be able to draw on good practice from wherever you can find it, whatever's going to work for your organization. So the bigger you can a pool of resource to draw from, the better. You're going to be able to understand and articulate those core roles and responsibilities of a PMO manager, because you're going to be talking to a lot of people that do not understand what it is that you do. So you're going to be able to articulate exactly what you're there to do, what people can expect from you, and what differences that you're going to make to that organization. Understanding about those competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviors, crucial to understanding how that might fit into your development as you go into a PMO manager route, and also how you continue doing a great career in that space. And as you say, that continuing that professional development. Now, I just want to come into the end. I just want to just explain, just again, there's two main certifications in the marketplace that are aimed at PMO managers, okay? There's the Essentials for PMO Managers course. Yeah, so that's the writings on it. It's for you. It's generally for, and it's called the Essentials. It's generally for people that are coming into the PMO manager role or has been working within it for 2 to 3 years-ish. Yeah, it's that level. If you've been PMO manager for donkey's years, you shouldn't even be on this webinar because it's called First Steps. However, that's not the course for you. It is very much for people getting themselves established in this role. As you've seen today over the last 50 minutes, there's a lot of it, isn't there? But that's brilliant because that means that you get a really lovely varied career. Other side, P3O, there's a foundation, but it's the practitioner as well. Yeah. So as a manager, you will have done both levels because you will be a practitioner in PMO management, because P3O is about setting up and running. It does have, to be fair, it does have running PMOs as well, but a lot of that course is about that kind of setup. So when he said about going through this stuff and it's like have a strategy, P3O is a good one to do to help you think about how you may develop a strategy. Yeah, that's the best way. Actually, it's just light bulbs just clicked. You've got a light bulb here next to me. It just clicked. Actually, when it comes to thinking about this strategy and looking out at what might be out there in terms of resources and things to pull on, P3O course would be really good for helping you to develop a strategy for your PMO going forward. But absolutely good for that. But the Essentials for PMO Managers, if you're going to have a look at the course on our website, you'll see the syllabus that gets into some of the core competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviors. So you can see the difference. So I'm coming to the end now. And again, what you're seeing on the screen is some of the other courses that we've actually got coming up in the next kind of few months. Specifically, I pulled out for PMO managers. So again, we've talked about P3O. We've actually got a P3O, oh, sorry, no, the top one there, coming up really soon. If you are a PMO manager that is having some remit around portfolio management, it is a must-have. It's the management of portfolios one. And again, that comes in foundation practitioner, just like P3O. It's just that you do really need to understand the theory and the best practice around portfolio management in order to be able to really put together and have a great strategy for a portfolio office. In other words, an office that is supporting portfolio management process within the organization. So that's that one. That's why that's been singled out. And the other one on there that you'll see is the Lean Agile PMO. That's a course we've been doing for a number of years now, which is about this thing where within our organizations now, we don't just have traditional projects. In other words, the ones that have been around for donkey's years, well, we could call it waterfall if you want, but the ones where we're doing traditional kind of like, planning, scheduling, we do initiation planning, delivery, shutdown, that standard life cycle. The problem that we have these days in a lot of organizations that they want to do agile-led type projects as well. That might be using things like Scrum or anything else in terms of that kind of method. It's how do we manage PMOs that are having to support our business when we're doing those kind of delivery methods. So that, again, from a management point of view, you will need to have a strategy for your PMOs to how you manage that. Yeah, so which is why we've singled those out. So that is our session, and I've not looked at the clock, but I'm really pleased to know that I'm under by 5 minutes, and you have been a quiet bunch. So if you've got any more questions, I'm here for if you want to pop them in. I'm quite happy to take any questions right at the end. If there's no questions, I just want to tell you that we're here to help. Yeah, we, like I said, have been in PMO the space since the late 90s. Lots happens, a lot changed. We've got a lot of stories to share, a lot of things that we understand, a lot we've been there, we've done it, we've talked many organizations over the year, many different types of PMO people. Whatever it is that you're trying to do right now, sometimes it can feel huge, but actually, it is about a build up of experience, knowledge, and skills, and all that kind of stuff. And remember, every organization has a different approach with PMO. Yeah, you can see job ads out there that are like PMOs that are for organizations where there's like billions of pounds worth of development and delivery going on, right through to somebody calling a PMO something which were actually they were just supporting one big project. Yeah, and everything in between. So it really does depend on the organization that you're working within or what you're looking around for. And don't be put off by me giving you some of the worst case scenarios, because it really is a great job, because we wouldn't be doing what we've been doing for 20 years. It's just been hopefully recognizing that it is a really interesting job and it will have ups and downs. I had a question about some of the courses about available online, so if you've taken your own time. If you take a look at the website, there certainly is some online courses that you can do in your own time, of which P3O is definitely one of them, and the ones that I'd shown you before, MOP definitely. There is a few of them more, a few more on there. Some of the broader kind of project management ones, is like Agile PM, stuff like that. Have a look online. Have a look at. We also do kind of self-paced, which is distant learning, which is not the same as doing like a an online virtual thing in your own time. Yeah, so there is some different options to suit budgets, certainly on the P3O. The essentials courses are not available online. They are only available in the virtual classroom. I've got a question. How new PMO manager with 5 people? Do you think the course is worth doing prior to gaining any experience? Now, great question. It depends on where you come from. Okay. If you're a new PMO manager that's not potentially come up through the PMO route or works as a PMO analyst for a number of years and got a real good rounding and a really good experience in it, I would look at the essentials for PMO managers course, as I would look for the P3O as well, if not already looked at that as well. The reason why I say that is that you can come in from the route of, say, being a project manager. Actually, you may think that you'll know what the PMO manager role is all about, and I think you'll be quite surprised that it's probably not what you necessarily think it might be, in terms of there's a lot of other things to learn. So what I would probably recommend is take a look at the syllabus for each of those courses. So do that research and that grounding there. And if you're unsure about a decision, please do get in touch with us. That's what we're here to do. We'd love to know what your circumstances are and give you that advice. It's, as far as we're concerned, as a training organization, the best thing for us is that you're on the right course. Okay, that's what we want. It's not just good for you, it's good for everybody else who's on that course as well, that everybody's there, in the right place and on the right course. So do make sure that you pick up the phone and get in touch with us. Okay. So, and just a final thing, so there's another note there. If you're listening to this on record and it's before the 19th of June, PMO Learning are going to be at the PMO conference in London. It's on the 19th of June in London. We'd love it if you are on this session today and you are going, or if you're thinking about going. It's run by the House of PMO. You can go and check that out. It's one of the largest gatherings in the UK, with PMO people coming together, people just like you, and it's a real thrill to be in the room with a lot of people that are all buzzy about the whole PMO stuff. So hopefully we'll see you again soon. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day, and have a great weekend.